altitude climbing. My brother, Frank Simmons, is one of the world's best. 3 days ago, Frank set off to climb Chomolunzo with a climbing partner, Paul Ward. He's still up there. Somewhere.
Cursed Mountain has arrived on the Wii's doorsteps during a rather large drought. But does this game give players scares worth their money? Or was this title cursed from the start? Now, Cursed Mountain follows the story of Eric Simmons, who is looking for his missing brother Frank. Frank was paid by Mr. Edward Bennett to go on a hike to the top of Mount Chomolunzo in search of a sacred artifact. Unfortunately, your brother hasn't been heard from since. Thus begins Eric's quest to hike up the mountain, rescue his brother, and find out what really happened up there. Now, Cursed Mountain could be considered a new addition into a survival horror franchise, though this game is a little different than most other entries in the genre. Consider it a welcome change. Having a story based heavily on Buddhism and Tibetan lore, Cursed Mountain finds the player doing battle with a variety of ghosts and demons. Early on in the game, Eric finds an ice axe, which is imbued with the powers to attack these spirits. Soon he is able to use his third eye vision to shoot magical powers from his ice axe, disarm ancient symbols, and even perform spiritual rites of passage, using the Wii remote for gestures, to banish the ghosts to the other realm. Now, when you're not banishing ghosts, you're either climbing the dangerous slopes, trying to find keys to locked doors, climbing ladders, reading journals, or smashing vases, and more vases, and more vases. This gameplay stays the same throughout, except for minor moments where you have some oddly placed QuickTime events or special objectives like finding oxygen and keeping your air supply up. Also, during the trip up the mountain, you'll be fighting a few various bosses, though they tend to be taken down just the same as the rest, with maybe a few different patterns. And if you get damaged in battle, don't forget those pesky health kits from other games. Cursed Mountain has incense. Yes, incense. Now, if you thought any of these gameplay mechanics that I just mentioned would take you out of the experience, or you just are simply expecting Eric the Mountain Climber to become Eric the Badass Commando with a semi-automatic rifle, this game might not be for you. Cursed Mountain is indeed a slower-paced mystery horror game, and it should be treated appropriately so. Now, Eric looks rather detailed up close, and the environments he finds himself in the game do a great job of changing the look and keeping the player from growing bored. While you are indeed climbing a mountain the entire game, getting higher and higher, you'll visit various small towns, climb rough terrain, explore a temple, and even venture into an icy cavern. While the game can look great at times, other times it just seems to look rather average. This being a Wii title, it gets a little more slack, but still, we know that the Wii is capable of much better than this. Though the graphics on the ghosts, particularly the particle effects when they are banished or when using your third eye, looks great, and the draw distance is pretty impressive, especially considering that the chapters only load at the beginning and never again until the level is completed, and loading the next level. Plus, the snow effects are simple but nice looking, and there's nothing like looking back down the mountain to see how far you've really come. Animations are average at best, but thankfully the frame rate stays pretty smooth throughout. Now, the howling of the wind, the creaking of the doors, and the moans of the ghosts, all the appropriate sound effects you would expect from a horror title, and Cursed Mountain is no exception. The horror genre always has to count on its soundtrack to provide half the chills its audience gets. Thankfully, they are pulled off wonderfully, and the musical score is matched perfectly to the mood. While the main character's voice acting is decent, the rest of the cast sounds average at best. No performance particularly stands out, but they get the job done.
Either these ghosts are real, and your whole worldview just got knocked into a hat, or there's some kind of high-altitude hallucination.
Now, Cursed Mountain is a mixed bag of sorts. It does nothing extremely bad, nor does it do anything extremely good. It teeters right in the middle ground. I found myself enjoying it and wanting to progress, so much in fact that I completed it in only 2 sittings. So, since I'm torn, I'm just going to get the bad parts out of the way. The fighting occasionally gets old and repetitive when you're only fighting ghosts, and with the occasional demon-like boss. I understand that it fits with the story, and they even try to mix it up by making them progressively harder, like ones that fly or shoot energy at you. Or by even giving your axe slightly different attachments to change its abilities, like giving it like a shotgun blast, or a stronger but slower to load energy attack. But still, it all comes off feeling very the same. Also, the finishing spiritual gestures work most of the time, but on various occasions I found myself waving my controller around in frustration. Also, the QuickTime parts are so few and far between, they just seem out of place and they probably should have just not been included. Now on to the good though. The setting in the story is very different, and this could be considered a con to some people because they simply won't get into the Tibetan lore or the style the game was going for, but if you can, it really does separate it from the rest of the crowd. Then add in the idea of steadily making your way up a mountain, with climbing sections added in, and kind of giving it this quasi-platform feel, also goes a long way. Now, considering the idea of fighting ghosts with a blessed ice axe might sound weird on paper, it simply just works in the context of the story. During the game at first, I sort of was feeling like, I don't know if I like the idea, but much like Fatal Frame's idea of using a camera to capture ghosts, it's kind of the same way this game uses its axe. And I was also reminded of Fatal Frame various times while playing this game. A classic in its own. Also, the game is fairly easy in both progression and combat, except for when it ramps up in difficulty near the end. Now, I'd personally recommend any horror adventure fan to check Cursed Mountain out. Whether you rent it or decide to buy it, though, is up to you. It's not often a horror game is released on a console, let alone one that does things just a little bit different than the rest of the crowd. Though it definitely could use some more work to make it amazing. As it is, it's simply a good game. For all those never interested in the genre, though, this surely won't make you reconsider. I give Cursed Mountain a 7 out of 10.
It's real enough.